How's it going, everyone? This is Josh, and we are on a new episode of the Teams Recap in the beginning of August now. And rather than doing these solo like I've done the last couple times, I finally got back to having a guest on the show. And today with me, I am happy to have fellow MVP Mark Vale join me on the show. Mark, welcome. Thanks for making it.
Thanks. No, thanks for having us. It's been a while since I've been on video, so
yeah,
waste has grown a little bit.
It's been it's been a good while, actually. Because you used to have a show, and I'm finally getting around to returning the favor when I was a guest on your show.
Yeah.
A good almost 2 years ago, probably now. It's been a while.
It has been a while. I think it's been about 6 or 7 months since I last did a show.
Yeah.
It's just been a very hectic time in my life.
Yeah.
New baby, new puppy, new job. Lots of
Oh,
work.
man. The new baby by itself will derail things, but you throw a puppy and new job in there, and it's just an utter recipe for chaos is what that is.
Yeah.
But I mean, putting video aside, you're pretty much burning a hole in the blogosphere these days with a new blog every 5 minutes, it seems like. So you are on top of the blogging lately.
Yeah, I've tried to get back onto it. Like I say, sort of start of the year was a bit quiet community for me. Just working too many hours in the day, not enough time for community. So I was really sort of worried about July renewal for MVP. I was like, well, I haven't really contributed for 3 months, so would I get it or not? But hey, got through that gate, so
got renewed. There you go.
Yeah, time to blaze the trail and blog about this Teams thing that everyone keeps on talking about. So.
It does seem to be something people want to talk about, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think the reason you're blogging so much is you're trying to get away from the baby is what it is. That's what my theory.
Yeah. So, well, the job that I'm on at the moment, I'm working 4 days a week on site from home. I travel back into every day apart from a Wednesday to stay over. So whenever I get a few minutes in between things, it's like I'll just tap out a couple of paragraphs and hit go. And then I think it was last week I had a bit too much spare time on my hands.
Yeah. You've had a pretty hectic schedule this last bit here, so I guess it does leave a lot of gaps though for blogging. So there you go. But good on you for that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and kind of where you're at now, and then we'll jump into the ever important content, our tabs there.
Yeah. So my background is very uninteresting. Like most people, I probably came into the Skype world kicking and screaming because nobody else wanted to do it. And before that, I was Exchange consultant. Before that, I was Windows network manager. So I come to Skype and Enterprise Voice world from the Microsoft side, and when you speak to people in the community, they either come from a Microsoft side or they come from telephony side. So it's a good mix. But I definitely come from the Microsoft side. So been doing Skype, Link, relatively late in my life. I'm 35 now. I started doing that when I was about 30. So only for 5 years I've been doing Skype on a purely dedicated basis. Before that I was kind of a generalist. Got my MVP in 16. Finally, after 11 nominations of filling out that awful form. But we finally got there. I worked for Dell as a UC consultant until quite recently, and decided to go it alone, go self-employed. So I'm a contractor. Some people call them mercenaries, but it's definitely not that. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying it now. At the moment, working for a customer who makes motorized vehicles.
Okay.
And, they're going from Google Cloud and Cisco to Office 365 Teams with direct routing, so right at the coalface.
Wow, quite the project. Well, congratulations on the new venture. That's awesome, and you're absolutely right about that path. There are usually two paths. My path almost mirrors yours exactly, and I was a few months behind you on the MVP trail. I know exactly your pain you're talking about with all those forms. I'm glad they finally changed that process up afterwards, but unfortunately they changed it right after you and I went through the pain of it. So.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
But All right. Well, we could gab on forever and ever about that. Let's jump over and I'll share my screen here. All right. So up top, you'll see we've got several tech community posts up here. So we're going to be diving into a few of those. And we got a couple other pieces we're going to dive into as well. But this first one is a little bit of Teams news. After the Teams news, we're actually going to have a decent amount of Skype for Business stuff to talk about today, which has got to be like, yeah, the first in quite a while. So let's talk about this post that came out yesterday by Paul Cannon over on the product group over at Microsoft. The auto-attendant and call queues. For auto-attendant, they're saying it is now generally available for Microsoft Teams. And for whatever reason, call queues is in ready for preview. So those both didn't make it into GA at the same time, but they're both functioning at this moment, at least on some level, with auto-attendant being full featured. So that's pretty cool to finally see that. That was one of those items that was like a Q2 deliverable on the Teams roadmap, and kind of slipped past Q2 and has really been rolling on into Q3 without an update. So we finally got that update. I have not actually taken this for a test drive yet. Have you, Mark?
Yeah, to be honest, I was actually quite surprised. I thought it'd been released a little while ago, but then both me and you are on different release ring, aren't we? So
yeah.
I mean, I got one word: piracy, right? So. Yeah. I'm quite surprised that call queues hasn't made it at the same time as auto-attendant. Really, because auto-attendant feeds into call queues as well, or OGA. So it's quite surprising that one is only working in a certain scenario. So would that mean that OGA is only really working for directory lookup and not for forward to a call queue, for instance, which that post suggests? So maybe not quite parity just yet.
Right, yeah. But it's good to see that we didn't fall back to that horrible GUID that we used to see in Skype for Business Online.
Interestingly as well, when I was testing out the auto-attendant, one of the issues we used to have with Exchange was that when you PSN called into a auto-attendant, searched for a user's extension, and then that user got called, was that the calling identity of the calling user wouldn't come through from Exchange into Skype, so it always come up as an anonymous user's calling you. In Teams, it comes up with calling numbers, so at least you can see who's calling you. So
right. Yeah, it's a little better that way. So it's good to see that's there. So yeah, there's not a whole lot. This isn't some lengthy post, which can be good. It's a short, consumable post just to get straight to the point, but. As is pointed out, in order to get started, you're going to need to configure the interop and upgrade policy for Teams. Here's a link here for the migration and interop with Skype for Business. And then, as mentioned, if you don't have auto-attendant or call queue configured, there's a couple links for how you're going to set that up in your environment. A couple of frequently asked questions. Can you answer an auto-attendant and call queues on a Teams mobile app? Yes, you can with the newest versions of Teams in iOS and Android. Call forwarding, does that work with the auto-attendant calls? This says yes. This is a typo. It says yes, call queue calls will be forwarded based on users. Should be auto-attendant calls. And I actually pointed that out to the product group. I think that there's probably going to be a change made there before too long. And then does call forwarding work with call queues? Same question, just call queues, and they actually say right here, no, call queues will not be forwarded based on users' configuration. And the reason is they want to ensure that the callers remain in the queue until they actually get a proper agent. So, that prevent the whole accidental forwarding to someone's personal mobile phone, and then they answer it, yo, what's up, man? Please leave a message, something like that. So that's what we're avoiding there.
My favorite voicemail message is the mental health hotline. So if you ever Google that, I'll put that on YouTube.
Now I have
that's what I used to leave. Yeah, that's what I used to have as my message to stop people leaving me voicemail.
There you go. That's awesome. Okay, so there you go. Auto attendants, go ahead and start kicking the tires there. Call queues, you can begin playing I believe, but make note, they are not in general availability yet. Last episode, about a couple-ish weeks now, I announced on the show that Skype for Business Server 2019 was announced at Inspire. At that time, it was really just a tweet that was put out there by another fellow MVP, Adam Jacobs, and there was no actual documentation. For whatever reason, Microsoft kind of approached the announcements at Inspire differently than Ignite. Last year, they made the announcements at Inspire on stage, but didn't have blog posts to go with them until later, at least from what I was seeing. Whereas Ignite, they made the announcements as we moved through Ignite, but had a blog post or two ready to go first day. And so we're kind of went a little backwards. So now that we talked about the official announcement, now we actually have the document put out there, another Paul Cannon post as well for us to go over. So let's take a little bit of a look at that. And then we're going to follow up this with a post actually by you, Mark, and talk a bit about that and what some of the key takeaways you'd have for us in that post are. Again, as we work our way down here are some of the key pieces. Obviously, up top, we've got a download button if you want to go take the public preview for a spin. And then note that you can't make comments on this post. They have a separate forum for you to do that. Some of the key pieces that are going to be coming with Server 2019 or that are coming are there right now, and then some that will be coming a little later. Cloud voicemail. So using Azure voicemail for your Skype for Business server users. Brand new feature, something you talk about in quite a bit of detail in your blog post. So we'll get into a bit more information there. Before we move on to the next piece, there's been a lot of questions and some confusion around the state of voicemail when it comes to Server 2019. And there's really a few different moving parts to keep your brain wrapped around. One is that Exchange Server 2019 will no longer have the unified messaging role. So if you're going to upgrade to Skype and Exchange at the same time, you obviously cannot use Exchange as a solution for Skype for Business any longer. On-prem, we're talking on-prem here. That means that you would have to either use a previous version of Exchange, which you can do with Skype for Business Server 2019, or use Azure Voicemail. So that's kind of some of those fine points there. When you think about being taken away with 2019, it's important to understand all the different pieces and whether we're talking about 2019 in Skype Business or Exchange or both, for you to be able to get that question properly answered. Mark, you probably have some deeper context to add there, maybe. Otherwise, we can just wait for your blog post. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll cover it in the blog post. But essentially,
cool.
it's not the Skype for Business 2019 server has removed It's the fact that Exchange Server 2019 has removed
Yes.
Therefore, we can't leverage that. So don't blame the Skype product group for that one.
Exactly. And you know, having the Azure voicemail option is good. There are certainly a lot of scenarios where that will work. There are some where there's going to be planning that has to be done. But I mean, that's the nature of us all keeping a job, right? There's always something new to plan and work on. So good stuff. Next up, Cloud Auto-Attendant, which we just talked a little bit about a minute ago. Server 2019 will begin supporting the use of Cloud Auto-Attendant, allowing your on-prem customers to be able to use the latest auto-attendants as they're rolled out. Obviously, hybrid is a key component of that. And then auto-attendant will be available later this year, so keep your eyes peeled for an announcement there. As it is right now in preview, you're not going to be able to test that out. And then there is this notion of a cloud call data connector. This is something kind of new with Skype for Business Server 2019. And the whole idea here is having this, I don't know, you want to call it role. I guess it's a role service functionality in 2019 that is going to allow your on-prem to be able to send data to Office 365 for use in call analytics and call quality dashboard. There's some really good points to why this is useful, having all the data in one spot, et cetera. That's all great. There are also some mechanisms built in for sending that up to the cloud, but also keeping some of that on-prem as well. It's really a good read to read more about the call analytics or the call data connector as it exists in the docs.microsoft.com environment. So I'd encourage you all to read that, and I'll show you that link in a minute. But yeah, interesting new component to the server that you're going to want to make sure you have a good grasp on. Streamlined Teams migration. So, Mark, do you want to tell us a little bit about what that means?
I have no idea. I'm joking. So in the new PowerShell module for Skype for Business 2019, it's going to have when you do a move CS user command, it's going to have an option there to move the user straight to Teams. And essentially what that does, it does exactly the same as what 2015 does for hybrid user, moves it onto the cloud and onto online, assigns the policies and what policies carry through, but essentially what's going to happen is it's going to flick the upgrade mode to upgrade to Teams, so that when you go into the cloud, you'll no longer be able to use your Skype for Business client. You'll have to use the Microsoft Teams client, and all your functionality should be there, contacts, phone numbers, etc. So everything that you need. Still don't know whether delegates and team calling gets migrated or even call forwarding settings. I just haven't had time to deploy 2019 yet to test that out.
Yeah.
But if I had to guess, I'd say probably not at this stage.
But I mean, it's good to see that. I mean, obviously, as people are talking about Skype to Teams migrations in the cloud, and then they look at Server 2019 for the future, and especially organizations that know they're going to be hybrid for quite a long time, the relationship between on-prem and Teams obviously needed to be strengthened. A better story needed to be told there. And so having the server product actually be able to transfer users directly to Teams is a big part of that strength.
Yes. So a lot of organizations who have got Skype for Business Server 2015 or Link 2013 will have now on-prem looking at doing hybrid. They've also got this worry in the back of the head that Skype for Business Online is going to disappear at some point. So there really has to be a hybrid Teams to Skype story. And that has to be slick for an organization to consider anything cloud-based. Now, with 2019, that obviously bridges the gap between on-premises and cloud that much smaller, because we're now leveraging more of the cloud capabilities. And we realized that some of the functionality that we used to rely on-prem is not needed if we're going hybrid, but that really forces the hand for an organization to say, right, if I want to go to 2019, I really have to adopt some form of hybrid in order to get the same kind of features I had in 2015.
Yeah.
Now, and I see sort of this as a two-headed monster as such. There's going to be organizations out there who they will adopt the cloud, and this will be the enabler for them. And there's going to be other organizations who are still very heavily on-prem only. They've got departments in places like Switzerland where there's really strict data laws on where data can be stored, who can access data. The Cloud Call Data Connector, for instance, can we strip personal information out and all that type of stuff. So they're going to be really looking for an on-prem only solution. I think that 2019 for some of those organizations is really going to make them look long and hard as to whether they can upgrade or not. But we'll see how the story unfolds.
It is going to be interesting to watch that.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to be something that will be interesting to see how because there are a lot of organizations are going to be faced with questions that they haven't yet had to ponder, and decisions will have to be made. And so it's going to be interesting to see how things evolve. But if you want to get started, sorry?
I was going to say, I don't know whether you want to talk about what's been deprecated in 2019. It's probably a good moment to talk about stuff that's going as well.
Yes. And this article doesn't cover that at all, does it? So, let's go ahead and chat about that really quick as well before we talk about how to get started with 2019.
Yeah, so the documentation link in this blog post takes you to the landing page. You can go to find what's deprecated right there.
Yeah. Let's just do that. Let's click on that for a minute and take a look.
For it. And then say what's deprecated in the left link. Yeah. In the left tree, that's it. So here, Microsoft's stating what's no longer available in 2019. So we've got no XMPP federation. It's no big deal really because Google stopped XMPP federation when they got rid of GChat and went to Hangouts.
Yeah.
Persistent chat servers disappeared.
Not a giant surprise there.
Not really. No, you got this thing called Teams out there that's supposed to be replacement for PChat.
Right. And a lot of development dollars going that way. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's a valid replacement for a lot of organizations. There are going to be some use cases where PChat really should be used if you think about people with ethical walls and what have you.
Right.
So persistent chat is probably heavily used in the finance sector more than any other sector going. Perhaps the biggest one and the most disappointing for me personally is the deprecation, the removal actually, not deprecation, of SQL mirroring support for Skype for Business 2019. So that means if you want HA, then you're going to have to adopt either SQL clustering or SQL always on, and that obviously is going to mean that you need to purchase your SQL enterprise license rather than going a standard license, which mirroring was supported in standard. And then the standard edition only supports one database in the always on availability group. So obviously Skype's got multiple, so you're going to have to go enterprise. So there is some quite considerable cost uplift from both 15 to 19.
Well, there's the administration for mirroring too. You know, mirroring was built in as something you could deploy from topology filter, and that simplified administration for a lot of people. SQL always on, great solution, but it is a more complex solution to deploy. So there's that angle as well.
Yeah. So when you're deploying always on, you have to be almost a DBA SQL expert to go and do it. So you do that in SQL itself and just present the database connection to Skype. Interesting that in-place upgrade is no longer supported, but then it's no real surprise since Skype for Business 2019 demands that you're on Windows Server 2016 and most Skype for Business 2015 deployments are going to be on Server 2012.
Right. That was always scared the crap out of me anyway. An in-place upgrade, I never wanted to try that. It's like, no, thank you.
I've done a few. It's worked fine. It's when you see the components getting completely uninstalled off the server, and you're hoping that the installer completes and installs it.
A little panic attack there, yeah. Mobility service, another one, no longer really needed moving forward, because all your current Skype for Business mobile clients are using the UCWA to support instant messaging. So
so things like the Link 2010 mobile client, the OCS client, even if you can download it now, it's not going to work. But then that shouldn't be any surprise anyway, because when you think about the support matrix for Skype for Business, it's always N-2. And interestingly, I haven't checked the topology yet, but I would expect the Link 2010 is not supported in the topology of the 2019 server because that's N-3.
Yeah, I would think not, but I haven't checked either. But we got a list of tools here too that we'll go over quickly before we jump back over to your blog post. But we have a number of tools that are not going to be available at initial release. So we can take that to mean eventually, but they're not there at RTM.
So all the really good stuff that you need to deploy it is not there.
Yes. So take a note. Take a picture of this and keep that in mind.
It's like you're going to deploy 2019, but I've got no debugging tools, so let's just hope it works.
Yeah. And then you got these that are going to be flat out not supported with Server 2019. You got your CQ call quality methodology dashboard, the call quality methodology scorecard, and the 2015 planning tool, 2015 stress and performance tool. Which I mean
you know, the last two aren't going to be too much of an issue, right? Because I've never seen anyone really deploy the stress tool unless they're really being that prudent to do it. It's a lot of effort to set up a stress and performance tool, and you don't really do it at the point of deployment anyway. It's not something that you do in production, or it's being used rather. But then the call quality methodology piece, that's still very important for on-prem users and installations, because ultimately is to get the best possible experience to the end user and best voice quality, and without that tech to really look into the client logs, into into QoE and what have you, to find out where your quality issues lie. I'm sure it will come, and if not, somebody in the community will create one looking at.
Yeah, it'll leave a void that someone will fill eventually. Yeah. So this area, by the way, everyone, this is the Skype for Business Server 2019 docs that are out there now. There are all kinds of notes about this being pre-release content. It's likely to change, blah, 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 all throughout each of these. But this is where you can come and get some really good info on all things having to do with Server 2019 as it exists right now. There's a number of things out here to dig into. So taking a look now, I've noticed some of this stuff links back to 2015 documentation still. So keep that in mind as you're clicking through. Pay attention to what you're actually looking at with some of the links. But this is kind of where you can get started on reading about Skype for Business Server 2019. Jumping back over to this Skype for Business announcement, at the getting started at the bottom, like Mark pointed out, we have a documentation link that takes you there, a forum, the actual download link for the content, and then a link to Microsoft Ignite, where Paul says he hopes to see us all. So that is all we have on this post for now, which will take us right over to Mark's post. And this is talking specifically about the voicemail topic when it comes to Skype for Business Server 2019 and using Azure voicemail and all that good stuff. And this is a really good read through. So I'm not going to read through it or go through it point by point. But I would like to get your take on some of the biggest takeaways for people. Obviously, one of the things is you got some clarification recently from the Microsoft team on costs. So that's a good thing to highlight. Any other thoughts you want to draw out of this post would be great to get your perspective on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the title's a bit sort of clickbait to get people's attention.
You're good at that, Mark. You're good at that.
I try to be. You've got to get the views and the clicks, haven't you? So.
Exactly.
But let's not forget that Exchange is not just for Skype for Business. There are a lot of organizations out there using the legacy VoIP system to connect to for their voicemail service. So I have worked with organizations who scrapped their Cisco Unity voicemail solution in preference for going to because of that native integration with the user's mailbox.
Yeah.
So those guys who've got that solution, you're really in a tight pickle. What am I going to do when Microsoft decide to close off in online, or my organization wants to move to Exchange 2019 for whatever reason? I need a voicemail solution. Now, you could hit the panic button and then talk to places like Cisco and Avaya, say, can I, buy my voicemail back? Can I get my Aura messaging back, or what have you? And they're probably going to say, yes, sure. Here's a quote for, thousands of pounds for it, and also thousands of pounds of unpaid support you haven't paid for the last 6 years, or what have you. So there's hidden costs there to factor in. But then it really is going to start to question whether voicemail is valid for today's UC world. Because as the younger generation come in, and I'm not talking millennials now or what have you, don't want to sectionalize everybody, but the younger generation coming into the workforce, the concept of a voicemail to them is like, why would I want to have a voicemail? So you can get me on Skype, you can get me on WhatsApp, you can send me an email. There's so many other methods of getting hold of someone these days that really leaving a voicemail is no better than sending an email. Do I care if I don't have voicemail? I personally don't, and I'm sort of my middle age now, I guess. So, but then there are going to be some valid reasons for voicemail. Things in contact centers. The contact center is shut down for the day. Please leave a message, and one agent will get back to you when the contact center opens again. There are still valid reasons for it. For those, it's really going to force force people's hand and say, well, if I want to leverage Microsoft's voicemail service, then perhaps I should look at things like Skype for Business or Teams as a replacement for my VoIP, but quite equally, they could look the other way. It just really depends on that.
Right.
The other question that people had was, how much is cloud voicemail going to cost me? Because was part of the enterprise license I used to purchase for Exchange for all the compliance reasons, and now I'm not getting that. So a voicemail service that was essentially inclusive, or free, I'm now going to have to pay for somewhat. So obviously in the cloud, if you look at wanting Azure voicemail with Skype for Business Online or Teams, you have to have obviously a Skype or Teams license plus phone system to actually get the back end to spin up your voicemail. Now, I assumed that would be the case for on-prem users in Skype world because that's what's needed. But Roy from Microsoft, I don't want to say his surname because that looks too naughty to to say. But yeah, so Roy works in the Exchange product group, and he is the person who owns or owned a decision to deprecate So it's his decision to remove PBX features from Exchange. It's fine, what have you. And he reached out to me and said, hey, your blog post is not kind of accurate. You don't have to buy these licenses for your on-prem users. All that needs to happen is that you need to have one license on your tenant. It doesn't have to be assigned. That is either a Skype for Business or Teams license, and that will kick off the back end provisioning process in the tenant to give you Azure voicemail. Because what they don't do is provision every single possible service you can get in Office 365 when the tenant's created. So it requires licenses to be purchased for different provisioning. So that's just a way of them saving data space, storage and what have you.
Which is a really interesting notion, right? Because it's like you said, you would assume, given the way licensing works for these services in the cloud, you would have assumed exactly what you assumed, that you'd have those requirements there. So it's very interesting, and I think it's going to be a point that catches a lot of people. And so this clarification and this knowledge in this post is, I'm sure, going to get a lot of hits, as far as people finding it, just trying to find the cost associated with using Azure voicemail with Skype for Business Server 2019, because it's a very it's an interesting question, or an interesting answer to a question that you might have thought was pretty obvious.
Yeah, that's it. And Roy went on to say that, look, you only need one license. We can give you a trial license just for it to spin up. And when the trial license finishes, if you're in the preview program, there's going to be some promo codes that you can go and get a SKU for to make sure that voicemail continues. But essentially, you need one license that's going to have a Skype license or a Teams license. So that's essentially any enterprise license, just one. And if you're using the cloud anyway, then you're already covered. If you're not using the cloud and you want to spin up an Office 365 tenant for voicemail, it's going to cost you pennies per month for organizations.
Yeah, it's very affordable.
It's not. It's almost free, right? It's not worth arguing about all this. So, but I think there's going to be one more update to this post. I just needed another clarification from Roy, because he went on to say that only Azure AD Connect is required and accounts synchronized, and the tenant doesn't even need to be in hybrid for voicemail to work. Yet the documentation on docs.microsoft.com state that hybrid is required. So I still have one iteration probably to go once I get clarification on that.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. And that, so everybody keep your eyes out for an update on that post. And I'll of course include the link to the post in the YouTube video description, as I normally do. But yes, having it this way, even if you're pretty much getting the Azure voicemail services for nearly free, and that's all you literally deployed a tenant for that purpose alone, to give your server 2019 users voicemail. To Microsoft, that's still a worth it thing to do, to give that service for free, because essentially that's a gateway, right? Once you've got that tenant open, it's only a matter of time before you're talked into using other services in Office 365. So
yeah, I mean, absolutely, right? You're going to poke your nose around and go, what's this? What's Staff Hub? What's Planner? What's Sway? And all that type of stuff. Let's buy an E1 license. So that gives us a little bit. Actually, let's buy an E3 and let's buy an E5. And then, we can do 95% of what we were trying to do in the cloud. So why don't we go to the cloud? So it's all about getting users and getting organizations into the cloud.
Yeah, just getting a taste.
That's it. Yeah, it's an enabler. So, the cloud's not going to go away. It's only going to grow. But equally, on a serious note to anybody from Microsoft watching, just don't ignore on-prem just yet. Yes, we know that the cloud is going to come and be the most prevalent service, especially with direct routing in Teams and what have you. But on-prem isn't done just yet. So I think they have a target. 2020 is the pivot point that they're targeting. I think it's probably going to be close to 2025 before we see the death, or well, I'll say the death, or the reduction in on-prem.
Yeah. And before we move to the next post, I'll just say, like I mentioned earlier, Mark has had a lot of posts out recently, and one of those is a good post about direct routing as well. He says direct routing, I say routing, potato.
Well,
but,
you know what a router is, don't you?
Yeah, I do. It's that thing that sits in a closet somewhere with all these blinking lights, and the Ethernet connects into it.
That's not a router. A router is this machine that you can cut wood with and groove it out. That's a router.
I know. It's another router. The many words have the same sound, but two different meanings. Okay, that's just one of them. Moving on. I have a router down in my workshop that I am still trying to master the use of, and it's been a messy learning experience so far. But okay. Preparing TLS 1.0 and 1.1 for deprecation with an Office 365 Skype for Business. Now, there was a previous announcement put out there that they do link to in the background of this post. So feel free to go look at the initial post announcing that this was coming. Now that it's getting closer, this blog post kind of serves as a couple things. A, to remind you it's coming, and B, to talk you through some of the things you might need to be thinking about now and preparing for now, depending on how you are consuming Office 365 services. So let's scroll down a little bit past the background, how to prepare. They cover three main topics in this how to prepare, three main areas that might apply to you. A, if we're talking about you having Link or Skype client connectivity to Office 365. Number two, on-premises server integration with Office 365, so hybrid. And then number three, third-party integration with Skype for Business Online. And they go down and cover each of these in depth quite a bit. This first part, Link Skype client connectivity to Office 365. They give you this handy little table to kind of find your place in it and decide whether or not there is preparation required for you. And essentially, unless you fall into this bottom category where your mailbox is on-prem and your Link Skype account is on-prem, and there even is an asterisk at that, pretty much the answer is yes to preparation required for every other scenario. So chances are, if you have clients, Link or Skype, connecting into Office 365, probably going to want to read through this section to find out how you need to get your clients ready, what the versions you need to be running on each client are. So, and I'm not going to jump in each of those in depth. You can read through it there and take a look at what's going to apply to you in your environment. But there's that. Then we have the following clients and devices that do not fully support TLS 1.2. And so you're going to have to transition away from these before that cutoff in Office 365, or you're going to be cut off from these clients. And we can see these are all what most of us would describe as legacy clients anyway. So make sure you read through.
There is a note on, so the date is 31st of October. For any organizations who have Office 365 in some form of hybrid who don't have an LPE phone.
Yeah.
If there's an LPE phone registered to your tenant, you are given an extra 2 months to the 31st of December to go and buy some more new phones, because obviously LPE is not going to be around. But let's not underestimate the impact of this change, right? So there's a lot of organizations who are going to have LRSs, and lots of servers. And if you go into the requirements for the server side, we need we need CU6, a Skype for Business server, and we also need specific Windows updates on Windows Server 2012 R2 for it to become supported. So those organizations who have, 40-50 Skype for Business servers in the topology, and a load of meeting rooms that have some kind of Skype room system.
Right.
There's a lot of updating to do between now and October the 31st. So
yeah, there's a lot.
Time to crack on.
Yeah, and I mean, like you mentioned, we've got Skype room system, SRS v2 and Rigel, and then Surface Hub. There are some options in here that they don't currently support 1.2, so there is a lot of work being actively done there, and they encourage you to keep checking back for updates. Obviously, you do need to keep checking back for updates if that applies to you.
There is contradiction there, just having a look at those bullet points if you just scroll back up a little bit. So interestingly, the first bullet point says Skype room system is not currently supported SRS version 2 or Rigel, and then LRS says SRS version 1 not supported, upgrade systems to SRS version 2. So,
it's probably that the whole thing needs to be clarified there.
Yeah.
But good call out.
Some things might break on the 1st of November. We don't know what.
Probably is a good guess. Okay, so on-premise server integration, if we're talking about hybrid, same kind of table. Find yourself in this matrix and decide whether or not there is action required. And, pretty much on the guidance listed, it's going to tell you if this article addresses that or if there's some other thing you need to be looking at. CCE falls into this as well. So find yourself in this table, figure out what's next, and then if you do need to take action, they provide that below in these pieces down here to tell you which application version you need to be running of Skype for Business, link server, and then I believe we even have guidance on operating systems further down here as well. So,
and a further note down there, if your customer running Link 2010, Link Server 2010, they recommend you go straight to Skype for Business Hotfix 2 or higher. And OCS is definitely not supported. So if you've got a Link 2010 deployment now, that suggests to me that isn't going to work in hybrid.
Yeah.
31st of October.
And that's a good assumption, I would say. Okay, cool. And then last scenario they cover here, and they cover much briefly, is third-party integration with Skype for Business Online. So if you're using a product from any third-party vendor that integrates with these SDKs and APIs they have linked to over here, you're going to need to do some following up to see if they support 1.2 or not. This could be, even if you follow all the guidance above but neglect some of these third-party interactions that you've got because they don't seem quite as obvious, it could be a bummer of a day on November 1st. So take note of anything custom and third-party that you have configured or installed and make sure support TLS 1.2 is included. And if not, start planning on what it's going to take to get it there.
Yeah, I'd probably go as far as say it's not just restricted to online. So if you've got a trusted application server on-prem, maybe call center or some other service, then you got to make sure that supports TLS 1.2 as well.
Yeah. Good call. Okay, so that's it for this topic. Is like we mentioned earlier, it's been out for a while. Like Mark set up here, October 31st is that target date for non-LPE discussions. LPE, you're given a little bit more of a grace period. And there are some programs out there from a few different phone vendors for actually swapping out devices that are going to work with TLS 1.2. So make sure you reach out if you're running mainstream. If you're running LPE and looking to run another type of phone in your environment, there are some programs there that you can take advantage of before that time. But the clock is ticking, so I want to get to that sooner rather than later. All right, let's jump on over a tweet from another fellow MVP, Luca Vitali, over in Italy. The new Skype for Business 2015 CU7 was released, and he has a very strong caution in this tweet that everybody should read carefully. He repeats, do not deploy if you use SQL 2008 R2 as a backend. If you need a previous CU, Luca has a very handy archive that you can go to over at his blog. Let's go over to the actual link for this update, okay? You just take a look at this list and you want to sit down and have a drink. There are a lot of improvements and fixes in the July 2018 update. And unless you were under a rock, you probably heard or saw some of the problems that were encountered with the first go around of this release. And so now we have the newer release of the update. There are a large number of things. I think I even saw you put something on Twitter today, Mark, about several Mac fixes and enhancements that were put out there.
Yeah, so this drop for CU7, there's a lot of fixes in features that are added for Mac support, which I'm sure is going to make people with Macs quite happy.
Yeah.
I never owned a Mac, so I don't really care for those updates too much. But
there are a lot of them here.
There really are. There's one thing to note, so that's going to affect everybody in this, is that in 2015 by default the meeting, if you join a Skype meeting without the Skype for Business client installed, it's going to prompt you to download the Skype web app. Now you can use the Microsoft CDN as a PowerShell command that you can say use CDN to use the Skype Meetings app, which is a newer version of the Skype web app. And that was an optional enablement in 2015. In CU7, it's actually going to make the Skype Meetings app the default. So that's just something to bear in mind if you use the web app for people joining in into meetings. So
there are a lot of things here, though. I mean,
the other thing as well on conferences as well. So at the moment, if you spin up a Skype conference, you have a dial-in participant over PSTN conferencing come in, they can sit in the lobby and the meeting's only activated once an authenticated user's joined, and then they can join. There's going to be support for an anonymous meeting activation, so that if you dial in as an unauthenticated user, you can actually start the meeting. Yeah. Good and bad things for that, but that's just something to note.
This is a pretty big one as well. The support for VBSS for meetings that are hosted on Skype for Business server, for the Skype for Business on Mac users. Getting VBSS to those meetings is a pretty something that's been waited for quite some time.
But I never understand Mac users, because every Mac user I've seen, they've got this nice shiny new MacBook that they probably paid $1,000 for, and the first thing they do is install a Windows VM on.
I know. I used one for a little while when my Surface was out of commission, Surface Pro, and I got used to some things, but it was certainly a learning curve, and not one that I was thrilled about.
But if you scroll down to the SQL problem, it's further down in
yes. Yeah, well, the thing I want to call before we get down there, they do call it up top that this update does enable LDR to support Skype for Business mobile clients. Then it also fixes these 10 trillion issues, but that's the one thing they want to call out up top to make note of. But this known issue, very good call out. This is what Luca was talking about down here. So again, SQL Server 2008 R2 as your backend database. Do not apply this update.
Yes. So there's a support KB that tells you exactly why there's a problem, and there's some feature in SQL 2008 R2 that isn't available, and that this CU requires. If you have deployed this CU and you've come to the problem where your Skype deployment's broken as a result of that, you can contact Microsoft support for a fix. But that's on a case-by-case basis, right? So the default position is, guys, if you run on 2008 R2 SQL, then don't apply CU7, wait for CU8. That's the official line on the matter. But I don't think there should be many people really using 2008 SQL on a Skype for Business deployment right now.
Right, hopefully not. I know there's going to be some, but hopefully most people opted for 2012, and
there will be some inevitably, but hopefully it won't be too big issue.
Good thing to make note of, regardless of the case. So that brings us to the end of our content. I'm going to go ahead and get back to our main screen here. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of another Teams recap, and today it felt a little bit more like a Skype recap back in the day. So that's pretty cool. We have some 2019 stuff coming up. I'm starting to hear things out there about customers getting ready to deploy either labs or the preview version of 2019. And I imagine as we get closer to Ignite, there will be more announcements coming involving interoperability with Teams and the cloud and all that good stuff that's supposed to be coming. So we'll have to keep our ears open for that and be watching Twitter and tech community as well. But Mark, thank you for working through each of these topics with me today. Appreciate you being on. It's a pleasure having you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Man. It's been good fun.
Now, I don't believe you're going to be at Ignite, right?
There's probably a 20% chance I may be.
So maybe? Okay. All right. But are you going to be yeah?
It depends whether I can get a free ticket or not.
Gotcha. Okay. Well,
if I can, I'll try and make the effort. If not, then we'll leave it until for another year. So
awesome.
It's kind of an expensive trip for me, and I'd rather put the money towards the summit and to go to Coventry next.
That would be awesome. That would be great. Are you going to be at Evolve conference though coming up here?
Yeah, I registered as an attendee this year, so anybody who follows me, I did a couple of podcasts from Evolve UC Day last couple of years. This year, taking a break from it and just going as a plain old attendee to soak up the atmosphere and just see what other people have got to say. Because when you spend all day on stage, you just ignore everything else. Right. You don't get to see the vendors. You don't get to talk to people that you might get to know over Twitter and what have you. And you don't see any of the sessions.
Yeah, so you don't get to experience the conference as it's intended when you're participating in it. So awesome. Well, great. So for those of you that will be going to EvolveConf, make sure you stop in and say hi to Mark there. And Mark, I'm hoping something will come through. We'll see you at Ignite coming up here. But at the very least, Summit next year, and eventually, hopefully, COMSB next after that. But
cool, man.
Thanks again.
No problem. It's been good.
Yeah, we'll talk soon, and thank you for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you here in a week or two, or whenever I happen to get around to the next recap.